Welcome back. Still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. The time is 9:36 a.m. Central African time. And we're going to be switching gears now and focus on those protests over water cuts and water shortages in Westbury and Coronationville yesterday. They escalated into somewhat violent confrontations between the police and the public. Earlier this week, if you have not been following, residents from Westbury and Coronationville have come out to the streets, very, very frustrated after months and months and months without water. They were burning tires, blockading roads, and demanding answers. We covered some of the live scenes yesterday. And police responded, and they responded very violently. Stun grenades, tear gas, and rubber bullets. And among those that were injured was Daily Maverick journalist Julia Evans, who was shot in the leg while covering the demonstrations. She joins us now to share her first-hand experience of that protest and what it revealed about Joburg's deepening water crisis. Julia, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us the time this morning.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me.
I want to kickstart the conversation with just your on-the-ground experience. Just take us back to that moment in the protest, and what the scenes were like before the shooting and the violence escalated between the residents and the police.
Yeah. Well, just to take you back a little bit further, I've been covering the water cuts in Coronationville for a few years, not as long as it's been going on, but probably about 3 years. And one of the contacts I have, they messaged me a few weeks ago saying, it's been weeks and we haven't had a drop of water. And then she sent me some information that there was going to be a protest the next day. So I went there, and when I first arrived, which was at about 7:30 in the morning, many of the roads were blockaded with some burning tires and some rocks and cement slabs. But at that stage, things hadn't gotten violent. But I saw further down the road that there seemed to be a sort of standoff between some of the demonstrators and SAPS officers. So I walked down there. And at this stage, it was about 8 in the morning. No one had begun throwing rocks. Things hadn't become violent yet. And from what I could see, the police hadn't given a verbal warning. So pretty soon after I got there, things seemed tense, like the atmosphere was tense, but people had their arms raised and they were saying, we're not armed. But there was some tension because the police were trying to get some of the cars to get through the blockade. But yeah, like I said, people's arms are raised and they said we weren't armed. And then pretty soon after that, one of the SAPS officers dropped a flashbang grenade, which is this thing that is used to disperse crowds. And as soon as that happened, everyone started running away, including me, because I was there videoing it. I didn't think something like this was going to happen because I've covered Coronationville protests in the past, like I said, and it hasn't ever gotten violent before with rubber bullets and things. If I did think that, I probably would have stayed a bit further back and been more cautious about it, but I didn't think that was going to happen. Anyway, as we were running away, I felt something hit the side of my leg hard, obviously. And then I was like, because obviously we could also hear rubber bullets being fired. And then I was like, oh, I've been hit. So then, it sounds dramatic, but we ended up running to the top of the hill, and we ended up right outside the back entrance of the Rahima Musa Mother and Child Hospital. And there was a nursing sister who was outside, and she saw what happened. And she took me and another demonstrator who had been grazed on the bottom of her hand, into the emergency department to get checked. So that's what happened. It was obviously really scary, but I have to say the treatment that we got at Rahima Musa was really excellent. They took us straight to the ED. They checked out our wounds. They did an X-ray for me, and all was okay. It's just a surface wound, so I'm okay. But while I was in there, a lot of children and mothers and other residents came in to be treated for tear gas exposure. It was really sad to see. And, there were kids there who were crying and really scared. And it just seemed like such a strange reality. It's like a waste of government resources that the police have put all these residents in a government hospital that now government medical staff have to attend to. And some of the tear gas, like the wind was, this process was happening right outside the Rahima Musa Hospital, and it was quite a windy day. So some of the tear gas was blowing into the outside areas of the hospital, and the staff were telling patients to go inside so they didn't get exposed to tear gas, which is also super strange. Strange as in like what a like crazy reality to be living in, that this is happening in a like hospital area. And then when I left, which was probably like an hour later, things had escalated and frustrations and like anger had escalated within the community, and some demonstrators were throwing rocks at the police. And then when demonstrators threw rocks, then police would scatter rubber bullets. And then, yeah, eventually I managed to get out. There was obviously a lot of blockades and things. But yeah, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure you were clearly identifiable, as a journalist. Maybe you had your camera or something that showed that, you were an on-field journalist. How does it feel knowing you were shot despite that? And do you think this incident speaks to a broader problem with how the South African police services handles protests and treats the press?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't actually have a media, we have like a media armband, and also I have a press badge. I didn't actually bring that in the morning. I left quite early in the morning, and I kind of thought about it, but then I forgot, because like I said, I've been to protests like Coronationville before, and they've never escalated to that level. Like when I go into a protest where I feel like, oh, things might get hectic, I often will. But anyway, I probably should have bought it. But I do think it was pretty obvious that I was a journalist. I had like a huge digital camera slung around my neck. And there was also another photojournalist there in the crowd, and ENCA broadcasters were around. They weren't in that circle when I got hit. But yeah, I think it was pretty obvious. I think even if I did have a press band on, it would have been the same situation. Like I was just sort of obviously running and in the wrong place at the wrong time when I got hit, because they were just, and I also saw some people say like, oh, you should have been standing to the side. But I don't think that would have helped either, because I didn't see exactly where they shot because I was running away, so my back was turned. But I think what they do is often shoot rubber bullets on the ground, and then they can just bounce and hit people. And it just like is the luck of the draw of where you're standing. Like that lady I was with at the hospital, she got hit in the bottom of her hand, which is quite high up. So yeah, I think that it was pretty obvious that I was a journalist, but I don't think that was taken into consideration. It is, jarring and alarming that you're there to do your job and cover a story that's in the public interest, and you get harmed. But I mean, I don't think any of the demonstrators who I was in that group with should have been harmed either, because like I said, they were at that stage, it was peaceful. Later on, things escalated. But yeah, it is concerning. I do think that being a journalist is sometimes, it can be a bit of a tough job, but obviously you shouldn't have to put your life at risk. But I don't think, like I said, any of the demonstrators should have had to either. But yeah, a lot of my journalist colleagues were concerned that happened, and are wanting to open a case with SAPS about that, actually, and pursue legal action.
No, most definitely, and I think that's the way to go about it, especially looking at just the state of journalism, not just here in South Africa, but the world over, and how journalists are being targeted, journalists are being killed. I think it would send a very, very strong message. Just looking at the bigger picture, and you mentioned that you've covered Coronationville quite extensively. Do you believe these protests are just about water, or do they reflect a much bigger collapse in service delivery and just trust in the government? Because I've spoken to a lot of people who are from the colored communities in the southern parts of Johannesburg, and the sentiment is always the forgotten about the colored people. There are no services of any kind to our communities. They rarely even visit colored communities. These are the leaders. They rarely visit the colored communities unless it's like election season or something like that. Did you gather this similar sentiment?
Yeah, 100%. But really quick before I answer that, I just want to say I don't think that the police targeted me because I was a journalist. I think I was just there and, wrong place, wrong time, just like bad luck to get hit. But 100%, The Coronationville and Westbury communities definitely feel sidelined and forgotten. And the first thing they say when you say, what's going on? They say, why is it that we don't have water when, in Brixton or across the road where my sister is, there is water, and they feel like personally discriminated against. The unfortunate reality with the Coronationville area is that because it's a high-lying area, when there's issues lower down on the water system, they're the first to get water throttled or have their water cut off, because when the reservoirs run low, high-lying areas are the first to be affected. So it is more of like a spatial issue. But as we know, spatial issues have a legacy of racial discrimination. Like, I met a man yesterday who said that he was actually moved into this area when he was 7 years old during apartheid. And it's always low-income groups who have to face service delivery issues first. And it's those groups who actually can't afford to. I mean, if this issue were to happen in a wealthier suburb in the northern areas of Johannesburg, a lot of people would have boreholes in their own garden, or they would have, water tankers, other systems in place. And it's really frustrating that, when it comes to load shedding or water cuts, it's communities that already have to suffer so much that are having to deal with this too. So there is a huge sense of that. I think it's not obviously that the government is saying specifically, let's target Coronationville, but it's because of the area that they're in. It's a vulnerable area in the system. But what needs to be addressed is proper maintenance and infrastructure upgrades within Joburg Water. And that's the reason why this keeps happening. And it's been happening for over 5 years, even 8 years in this area. And it's not fair that these communities are always the first to be hit. And a lot of people in Coronationville are, older people, like people part of the, elderly, and these people have to walk multiple times a day to the one. There's a mosque there, and there's a borehole there, or there's one friendly person who provides water. And it's really horrifying that people who are my grand's age, who have to wake up either at 2 a.m. to fill up their bath when some water turns on, or they have to walk across their whole neighborhood to carry 10 kilograms worth of water back to their house just for a basic human right. I completely understand their frustration. And I think you said, what is this about? I think, it's about the fact that it's a basic human right. They need this basic human service, but they do feel ignored because this has been going on for nearly 8 years. And it is the most basic human right. And it's completely unacceptable that they continually get targeted. And it's not a new issue. It's not a surprise. Joburg Water knows why this is happening. Like I said, the maintenance and infrastructure issues that need to be addressed. So I completely understand why these communities get so frustrated. Every day for them is an unimaginable, not inconvenience, but it completely changes the whole way they live their lives. And it shouldn't be like that.
No, most definitely, Juliet. Thank you so much for chatting to us and giving us insight on what happened to you. Hope you get well and you head back to the streets. Brilliant work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, I'm okay. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure's all ours. There you go. That was Daily Maverick journalist Julia Evans, who was shot with a rubber bullet while covering the Joburg water protest. And this was a bit triggering for us here on Salam Media because, we cover the events of what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Palestine, and the targeting of journalists. It might not be similar, but, the circumstances of, journalists getting hurt while in the line of work and doing, especially in a country like South Africa, doing what is not even crime. This is journalists should be protecting. Police should be protecting journalists even. But I think her story underscores, most importantly, not just the dangers faced by reporters on the ground, but the desperation of communities who have been left dry, neglected, and unheard. It's a story that will continue to follow quite closely as water continues to be a privilege in Westbury and in Coronationville and the surrounding areas. And the anger is certainly building up more and more. And I think leadership needs to do something about it. The one sentiment that you always gather when you speak to people who are from, the quote unquote colored communities, or colored townships or colored suburbs, that they'll always tell you that we are neglected. No one is listening to us. No one is paying heed to the concerns that we have, and sometimes you feel like they might have a point. They might have a point. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views comes back.